Welcome, everyone, to the January 31st Economic Matters Committee hearing. Presently here today is Alderman Savage, myself, and Alderman Gay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda.
Do I have
Chairman?
a second? Yes.
I actually would like to include, and I'm so sorry I didn't have a chance to confer with you beforehand, but we're hoping to have an event on the 15th of February, if I'm not mistaken, for Black History Month centered around African American businesses. And I'd like to add that to the end of the agenda just to make sure that the Office of Economic Matters is aware and could possibly attend and present on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Do I have a second for that amendment?
Second.
Excellent. Did you have an amendment for?
Did we get to it? I'll just make a motion.
All right, cool. All right, all those for the agenda as amended, say aye.
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 All righty. So, up first, we are going to get an update from Stephen Rice and our various businesses participating in the Economic Gardening Pilot Program.
Mr. Chair, we have minutes.
Oh, I apologize. Trying to go off of my memory for the agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the amendments from our previous meeting?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All righty.
We also have, Mr. Chair, nomination of chairperson.
We're doing nomination of chairs again?
Oh, yeah,
I
we
would,
have to because it's the new year.
I would move
All
to
right.
nominate Alderman Chandlemeyer to continue as chair.
I will second the nomination of Alderman Chandelmeyer to continue as chair of the Economic Matters Committee.
I accept the nomination. Any other nominees? No? All in favor?
Aye.
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 There we go. All right. Mr. Rice, now you're good. Yes, please. Welcome, everyone. For the public's information, this pilot program for the Economic Gardening Program was approved last year, and the various businesses are currently being represented are maritime-based as a piggybacking off of our maritime zoning reform. So we want to continue that support.
Mr. Chairman, before we continue, if you allow me to ask a question on the floor.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, and I've supported your measure for economic gardening. I did not realize every business that was involved was in the maritime industry, and
That was part of the pilot, the initial pilot idea. It was kind of a continuation of our maritime zoning reform. After we're done the presentation, we can talk about maybe expanding it to other things or keeping it in various industries. So I'm excited to see where we are and where we can take it.
absolutely, that'd be great. You know, my concern when we did the Maritime Advisory Task Force was diversity in business, and particularly in the maritime industry. And so look forward to hearing from the businesses today and expanding the program, definitely.
Excellent. Mr. Rice, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to report on the program. And just to recap, I know we've had some conversations in the past as the program was being stood up, so to speak, but economic gardening is a grow your own approach to economic development, as opposed to economic hunting, which is more focused on going out, finding businesses that you'd like to have in your locale, and incentivizing them or recruiting them to your location. So this approach is a little bit different, and we really focused on stage 2 businesses last year when we kicked off the program in the summer. And what are stage 2 businesses and why? I'll just talk about that very briefly. Stage 2 businesses are businesses that have between 10 and 100 employees. They have annual sales between $1 million and $50 million. And why is it important to support stage 2 businesses? Stage 2 businesses on the growth curve, or they have a specific growth trajectory that is pretty significant. And as they grow, typically these businesses will not only hire locally, but spend locally. So the economic impact of supporting these businesses is greater than many other businesses because they're on a growth trajectory and they're going to pull and spend locally. So we selected 6 businesses for this program. The list of businesses is in the materials that we provided, and we have some of the business owners here as well. What were the businesses provided with, and was it helpful? Is essentially, what we're here to talk about today. But just to, kind of high level, the businesses are given strategic research. Some of it is market research, some of it is customer and competitor mapping, some of it is social media analysis, and also they're given qualified sales leads, which I would hope is helpful for any business. Each business had its own dedicated research team. There was no, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, none of the businesses were actually direct competitors. So let's just, put that out. So there was no potential for any sort of situation where information could be cross-pollinated. But each dedicated research team worked in a silo as well. So we were very, sure that there wasn't anything confidential that could have gotten out to another business or to the city or anything like that. Confidentiality agreements were signed by all, and everything was above board. So the research teams would essentially, through surveys and interviews of the company owners, find out what business challenges they had, and then go forth, do research, come back with reports. Based upon analysis, they would, maybe have some recommendations. The reports that there were 26 reports that were provided to the business owners on various topics. 92% of the reports were determined to be useful, and 8% of the reports were determined to be partially useful. There weren't any reports that were not useful at all. And the overall rating of the program from the 6 businesses was a 9.3 out of 10. So at least the feedback that we received in the National Center for Economic Gardening, who was the contractor for this pilot program, received was universally positive. So that's just kind of high level. I'm going to stop now, and maybe we can have some reflections from the business owners who actually had a chance to participate in the program.
Certainly. Now, before we have the business owners introduce themselves, starting from your right, going that way, Alderman Gay had a question for you. Yes, Alderman Gay?
Thank you so much, Alderman. I almost said Mr. Mayor and Alderman Shannon at the same time. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I did have a question about the stage 2 businesses. And I did see here you said it's between 10 and 99 employees. The M Yacht Services, Annapolis Sailing School, Schooler, Wind, Atlantic Cruising Yachts, and the last one I'm assuming, 2 more, Annapolis School of Seamanship and Diversified Marine Services, which I'm extremely interested in hearing more about. I'm assuming that all of them have in between 10 and 99?
Oh, all of the businesses qualified for the program.
Okay, awesome.
Qualified for stage 2, yes.
I'm sorry?
Yes, all of the businesses that participated were stage 2 companies.
Okay, awesome. That was my only question in the introduction. Just wanted to make sure. I'm not familiar with a few of them, and so that was my reason for questioning. Thank you.
Do
Sure.
you have any questions while we're here?
No.
All right, excellent. Sir?
Hi, I'm Rob Sola, owner of Diversified Marine Services. And first want to thank you for offering this to us. That was, I think, overall very beneficial. And one of the things that was most concerning to me to the start was the amount of effort that was going to be involved on our side in terms of participating in order to get the value out. And so from my perspective, it was very well run. There was some upfront time kind of defining what the questions were. This clearly wasn't, their first time doing this. They knew what to ask and how to frame things. They then went back and did their research. We had a touch point kind of middle of the way through just to make sure we were on the right track. And then when the research concluded, it was right on point with what I was looking for and what the expectations were and how they were set forth. So I think that it was run very well from that standpoint. From the standpoint of results and what are we going to be able to do with it, it's hard to quantify exactly what we'll get out of it. A lot of it, is going to impact our kind of strategic growth and planning going forward. And so the results are yet to be determined in terms of exactly how that will play out. And a lot of these things that came out of this are going to be weaved in with other initiatives and things we're doing. So it'll be very hard to pinpoint exactly, what benefit we get out of this. But I own a small business now, but my previous 2 jobs were in very large businesses, global businesses, $300 million in sales, $2 billion in sales. And I can say that the level of information we got out of this, the market analysis, the social media analysis, the customer analysis, was on par with stuff that we'd be getting at much larger businesses. And so I know because this stuff is kind of subjective and you're not sure exactly what the value is right away, I think a lot of businesses that fall into this bucket wouldn't normally spend that kind of money that this is worth to get this kind of insight. But it doesn't diminish the value. And now that I have it, it's certainly helped us refine how we're going forward with our growth. And I think it's going to be very beneficial for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Captain Jen from the schooner Woodwind Sailing Cruises. So we run the Woodwind and Woodwind 2 out of downtown Annapolis and take up to 40 people out sailing on both boats up to 4 times a day. So just to make sure you guys are clear about what we do. And so what I found, which was very encouraging, is that it seemed like you guys wanted to invest in the people you have working here, the businesses you have. And as you said, not try to find more businesses to come in and compete against us, and instead grow and help us grow our businesses when we don't have a lot of maybe extra income to go ahead and do some of this research and find the right people to help us. And so that's where I found this most helpful, is that they were able to do it in a small amount of time, tackle some of our challenges that we maybe didn't even know that we had. But then once you start thinking about it a little, it started broadening how much more you wanted to talk about it. And they were very good on pulling that information out so that then they could give you more information later. I wanted to just really thank them. Then when they came to us, it was, late September, beginning of October, and it was such a bad time frame for us. I mean, it's boat show, it's everything. It's like all your staff is leaving to go back to school, and everything that you needed. It was just the bad timing, and for them to go out of their way to push this back was very, very helpful, because then I could go away on vacation, which is what I did for like 2.5, 3 weeks over Christmas and New Year's. And I came back with this. I'm ready to rule the world with this information. And it was really nice to get your staff behind you. They interviewed some of our staff as well to try to get to know what they wanted as well as what the owners wanted. So I was very pleased. I could go into some detail where I think that I also want to share with them that I just got some reports back that where I don't think that it was very helpful, but I could tell you guys, I could tell them it's all.
This is your time. I'm assuming based on that, you're one of the 8 out of 10s. But
I don't think I knew that when I was rating them.
all right, but you basically, so some information was more useful than others, is what
yes.
you're saying. But
Yeah.
overall, they were able to give you a lot of very detailed reports in an organized and timely manner.
Yes.
Excellent.
I am Jenny Nelson. My husband Rick Nelson is next to me. We own the Annapolis Sailing School, the oldest. That button. Got it. It's the oldest sailing school, recreational sailing school in the country. So it's been around since 1959. And I taught there as a teenager, so I've got a lot of history with it. I would say that we welcome being invited to do this because we are a very small staff off-season. and blossom during the summer. And we actually are one of the largest employers of high school and college children during the summers. But the first thing we said to the economic gardening people was staff. How do we get staff? Because that was the biggest hurdle post-COVID or as COVID was going through. And the comment was that I believe 5 of the 6 companies who were doing the program said the same thing, but they couldn't help us with that. That was not one of the things on the list. They went through and asked for a controlling document, identifying market dynamics, marketing channels, ways for us to go out and market. They did the full analysis, has been mentioned, of the SEO, the online services, to be able to, is our website any good? They literally went through and analyzed our website against 10 of our competitors. So we were able to see from their standpoint, how that came out. And that I personally felt was one of the most beneficial things, because I didn't understand that ahead of time. We have a very young staff for old owners, so they understand it better than we do. And then watering holes, which is both virtual and physical places you can go to connect with people who might be interested in your services. So, through that, we were able to identify several areas we can definitely take advantage of. We did have to think about, or are still thinking about, some of it was leading to paper mailings. Well, when you have a staff that most of them are under 30, they don't believe in paper mailings anymore. They don't believe in magazines and newspapers, and so they really argue against us doing any of those things. So those we still have to work out to see how that can best be used. But one of the first things they had us do was a temperament study of all of our employees. And I'll tell you, you guys could do it on the council, and it'd be very interesting to see how you guys work together, because that's exactly what it showed us. They said you don't want to all be the same temperament. You need people who have a little bit of everything. And we came out to be so balanced, it was shocking how many different temperaments we had. So it was beneficial. We ran into the same problem. It was the end of the sailing season. Boat show was going on. We had trouble scheduling meetings with the gardening people, but they were very flexible in getting us to find a time that worked for everybody. Had the meetings and were able to go back and ask questions afterwards, from what they came up with. So it was very beneficial. But when it was all over, I put together a presentation, because we had some staff who went away for a period of time during the winter. They came back, and I presented everything to them. And we actually had staff raising hands, volunteering to take on certain aspects. We ended up having a lot of multitaskers, because we don't have enough people for all the jobs that have to be done. So that was very, it was kind of nice to hear, that they were willing to take on the extra things. So we found it very beneficial, and we're as going into the season, trying to figure out how to integrate it. But one thing I wanted to point out, they sort of introduced us to a lot of expensive databases. And we were kind of like, well, we really can't afford to sign up for those databases and things. And then the guy called me and said, I just found out you can get half of them through your library free. So, he had gone the extra mile to try and help us in that, because, it wasn't something that we felt we could spend the extra money to get these databases. But, it was very nice that he was able to follow up and come back and tell us so we could get it through the library. So that's what we're looking to do.
That actually fills me with a lot of hope for the
Yes.
continuation of this program. I'm going to start off. Any questions first, Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, you mentioned the gardening people. Are they city staff, or are they other folks who were helping?
No, we contracted with the National Center for Economic Gardening, and this outfit is based out of Colorado.
Okay, thank you.
So we were originally trying to get their head, Chris Gibbons, to come in via Skype. Unfortunately, I was informed at 5 o'clock, just getting out of the office, that we are not able to do so, which is too bad. He's a really interesting guy to talk with. But They're a pretty big firm. They've worked with various cities, and I think the entire state of Virginia contracts with them. So
Yeah, and I'll just throw in, he explained to us that when they first started, they actually started with some cities in Colorado, free of charge, where businesses had shut down, and they were trying to figure out how to help the businesses that were still around in order to move forward. And, you know, so they started out going out and really trying to help the people that were out there. So I thought that was an interesting start for them, so.
Alderman Gay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I do have a couple of questions. My first being centered around, and I don't want anyone to mistake this for concern of the business, but concern of the business type for the economic gardening project, and with all of them being maritime industry businesses. I understand that the Maritime Industry Task Force, put together by our colleague from Ward 8, Alderman Arnett, was supposed to be focused on enhancing the business experience for maritime industries in the city of Annapolis. But I'm concerned, and I'm wondering if the project or the scope of the initial pilot has prohibited us from gaining a good enough perspective on businesses amongst various services in the city of Annapolis. And I'm just wondering your thoughts on that and maybe how we can move forward.
Yeah, so part of starting originally on the maritime industry and piggybacking off of the maritime zoning reform was that seemed like an easy way to pitch a city that sometimes is hesitant to try new things. So I'm trying a new thing. What I hope is that we get a really good success story out of you folks, and that we continue with this program and expand it out to other business opportunities for the city, so we can actually have a much more diversified economy and be investing in our stage 2 companies, which, as you said, are already here, investing in what we have rather than trying to spend a lot of money and resources getting like Amazon to come in and create 100 jobs until someone else gives them a tax incentive and then they up and leave. You guys are here. You're part of our community. Your business has been here since 1957 or 59. Like, that's dyed in the wool in Annapolis. So that was kind of the rationale. It was, how do you make that initial step? How do you make that initial pitch? I definitely want to keep expanding this.
And I think that's important, Mr. Chair. I think, and no disrespect to the maritime industries, I think it's a crucial, part of the Annapolis economic industry. But I think we have failed to expand the scope of businesses that can provide true economic growth for all city residents in Annapolis. And I think that's what's concerning to me. Again, going back to the initial introduction of the Annapolis Maritime Industry Task Force, and then also the Economic Matters, Economic Gardening legislation, I had expressed concern about diversity and economic growth and diversity and job growth in the city of Annapolis. And in particularly in the ward I represent, where the average salary is about $20,000 right now. I'm only adjusting that due to inflation. It was about $15,000 a couple of years ago. There is not enough room to grow, or there does not seem to be enough growth in the maritime industry. And when we expressed interest in making this the center of our economic industry here in the city of Annapolis, I had great concern. One, because the industry fluctuates based off of season. If I'm incorrect, please correct me there. You all the experts, please.
So I'd say I think certain parts of the maritime industry fluctuate based on season. In my particular neck of the woods, which I obviously know better than others, and others can speak for themselves, we employ our full staff year-round. We have peaks in the spring and the fall, but we're 48 people full-time year-round. And growth, I don't know, there's growth opportunities in lots of industries, I'm sure. But ours, one of the challenges we had actually in this particular case is that our growth is constrained more by labor, finding good labor, not finding sales leads or customers, because there's more people with boats than there are people to do service or train people how to use them. So that's one of the things that fortunately this team was actually pretty good at, even though it wasn't part of the original scope. I remember Wendy from MYOTS raised her hand and said, well, could you still really help us a little bit with finding people? And so they kind of navigated a little bit towards the social media and a lot of the marketing stuff that typically they do towards customers. They helped us do towards finding people, local people, to help work and bring on.
Awesome, and that's great to hear. I'm sorry, what was your,
Rob Sola from Diversified Marine Services.
hold on 1 second, I'm sorry. You got 2 pages and I don't see
Yeah.
that. Which one?
Diversified Marine Services.
Oh, okay, awesome. The one that I was actually very much interested in.
And just to add on growth too, just so you know, I mean, we've grown 34% year over year on average for the last 6 years. So I don't know how many other businesses in the Annapolis area are doing that, but the marine industry has had tremendous growth. And it's not just because of COVID. There was a big bump because of COVID, a lot of interest. But even before that, capacity's kind of been constrained, I think, by labor rather than demand.
But yeah.
And you're one of the much more active groups in regards to your outreach. I see you have a Facebook, Instagram, etc. I do have a question in regards to you. You mentioned the difficulties in obviously increasing the workforce, and I think that's something that a number of industries have experienced over the course of the last 2 years in particular. My first question would be, I guess, what would the average salary, or not salary, but the average hourly rate of an employee be in a business as such? And I guess that's a question that we can ask for the whole crew. And then what are also, because when the Maritime Task Force industry came before us, they had stressed that this would not be a what do you call it when you can get a job? I mean, like entry level. I mean, McDonald's, like, anybody can go there and get a job.
Right.
When we had the Maritime Industry Task Force before us, they said these would not be entry level jobs. You would need at least 6 to 8 months of academic training on the industry before you're able to enter the employment field, which if you live in Ward 6, and I'm only just structuring this off of our numbers in both in regards to diversity and economic growth, you just don't have that flexibility with an average salary of $15,000 to spend most of your time dedicated to learning the industry before you can actually be employed in the industry. So what kind of maybe trade opportunities are provided as well? And I think that may be a question offered across the table, if you don't mind that, Alderman.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I could start. I'm sure you guys have your own answers to that, but we actually work closely with the Marine Trades Association of Maryland, MTAM. They've been very helpful in getting us resources and helping with funding too for apprenticeships and bringing people outside the industry into the industry, both local and outside the area. So in terms of what we offer, basically any person who's willing to learn and fits our team, we're willing to invest because the demand is that high. So we bring in people right out of school, a lot of people out of vocational schools like Cat South and Cat North. And then, like I said, people from other industries just looking to, change out of the construction industry or the auto industry or something, looking for a little more fun in the marine industry, perhaps. I couldn't say what our average salary or average hourly rate is. It's probably $26, $27 an hour. We bring in apprentices between $16 to $20 an hour. And our highest paid kind of senior mechanics are earning between $45 and $50 an hour.
Awesome, and that's great to hear. I went to Cat South, the product of Cat South. I was not in the Marine group, but I was in the dentist group.
Okay, all right.
With Roxanne Hubbard, who is fantastic. But that's great to hear, and that's part of the goal for our upcoming budget is for me to expand and enhance economic or opportunities for individuals trying to get into trade programming, in particular our high school youth. I just think that's a fantastic opportunity for individuals to be able to take advantage of jobs that could sustain families long term. I don't know, again, I'm not pretending to be a genius on what it takes to be in the marine industry, but I think that maybe the apprenticeships would be a good start for us to invest in to assist them, and that's kind of what I've taken away from the task force, and just also looking through these couple of reports. And so
I think that's a pretty good idea because in my phone conversations with each of you, when I called when you first started the program, workforce was brought up as one of the major concerns. So any way that we can be helping with that as well, not just in your industry, but any industry that's participating in the city, I think would be a good economic benefit because you combine like quality workforce investment along with like programs such as this and market research we can start really hitting above our weight class as an economic powerhouse. As for your interest in expanding to other industries, again, if we continue this program, I really hope we do. I would love to keep expanding it out.
That's perfect. And my last question is, I'm looking at the slide and I'm seeing the general comments, but if you could expand maybe further on how particularly the program helped your business, that would be great, because the comments are pretty general, and I just want a better understanding of how our, the financing process is helping you.
So can you remember that question? Because you asked all of us to answer the other questions about what else. And and Alderman Gay, I really believe that you've got some great ideas, and I have an idea for you. Okay, so we all need staff. We'd love to get staff that know how to sail. We're on the tourism side. Okay, so if you wanted to go down that list of what the different diverse maritime businesses that you have on that list, I think we're the only two tourism businesses in that maritime list. So we're more seasonal than the rest of them, because I heard Annapolis School of Seamanship on there, and they do a ton of training all year round. It's not just on the water. And so anyway, so here's my idea. We all need staff. You may know people that want to maybe sail for a living, maybe work in a marina, maybe become tradesmen, but they could do the sailing in the spring, summer, fall, and then maybe you need more workers, and then they can work on being a more complete marine worker in this industry, which then they could get jobs on bigger yachts. And all of a sudden they're the engineer on that yacht because of the business, what they learn here. And what they learn with us is on the side of customer service. And so we're no different than a restaurant in a way. We want those people that can be outstanding customer service people. We can train them how to sail. They can train them how to sail. We can get grants from you guys to get these people that would like to try this as a job. That'd be outstanding, especially if they're already in our community, rather than us having to try and get people to move here to work for us.
Yeah.
So you were asking about wages for ours. With all the tips that they make, they average $27 an hour. Okay. And that's their first year. Their second year, they're making even more. Their third year, even more. And then when they become a captain, now that's entry level. If they know how to sail, or they have the most bubbly customer service and we can get them to learn how to sail, that's what they're making.
From the sailing school standpoint, I want to clarify one thing. We don't shut down for the whole year.
Okay.
Our sailing season runs from April 1st until October, and basically the end of October. We then go into what I call rehab mode, where we rehab all of the boats that got banged up during the summer, paint them all, get them all back in shape. So we have a much smaller staff in those few winter months. But in the summer, we go into 5-6 times the number of employees. So it's a huge difference.
Let me just say to the Annapolis Sailing School, obviously everyone knows I grew up an extremely poor and vulnerable child here in the city of Annapolis in our public housing. My mother had thyroid cancer when I was in the 5th grade, and then again when I was in the 7th grade, and then through most of middle school. And we moved to Annapolis when I was in the 6th grade. I had an opportunity to get in Boxer-Rain, which was at the Annapolis Sailing School. I learned how to kayak, sail, swim, just all across the board. And that's something I'll never, ever forget moving into the city of Annapolis. It was my first experience ever being on the water. Can you imagine being 12 years old and this is your first time ever being on a boat, on a kayak or whatever? I'll never forget that. And so I think that's incredibly important. And I think it's incredibly important for the future of our kids here in the city of Annapolis for generations to come. And so I fully look to support any endeavors that you all have in regards to nonprofit organization programming, and even business development. That's for everyone here. You know, I just think that for me, you know, business growth and economic opportunity and equity is essential. And so I would love to support that in regards to the nonprofits in any way that we can through our community development grants, which have actually just become active, I think, a week ago, and they expire February the 23rd. And so I would encourage everyone who have a nonprofit side of their business to apply for that, please.
So, Rick Nelson, co-owner of the sailing school. And first,
You could speak in your
oh, sorry. I want to echo the comments of others in thanking you for supporting this program. And I realize it's we like the fact that it's maritime, but I would say that last year, I know when the discussion was going on in terms of the WMI, the zoning considerations and how to support the maritime industry, what I felt when I looked at, let's say, Newport, taking things from Annapolis, it kind of made me angry. And how can we do something that's outward looking? And the work that was done with economic gardening was quite powerful, and that particularly showing us how we can access the DC area in terms of bringing students into the sailing school. But having said that, we also serve the Annapolis community in two ways, both in teaching and particularly in our kidship program. 5 days a week, kids come in and learn how to sail. And then also in terms of employment. And again, as it relates to kidship, because as Jenny indicated, in the summer we'll have up to 50 people working at the sailing school. And it's a great way for high school and college students to get introduced to sailing and build up skills and an attraction for it that could then later on serve to going into the marine industry or the tourism business. So I think that's an important aspect. Also, though, we recognize how undiverse sailing is. And so we've done some things to reach out and trying to build upon that. Last year, we worked with Parks and Recreation and Archie Trader to give scholarships to kids to bring them into the kidship program. And this year we're looking at seeing if we can actually just have a full week that's dedicated to a more diverse set of kids. So we kind of recognize that obligation. We've been working with Seafarers Yacht Club, historically black yacht club, in terms of programs that we can develop along with them, be it Sea Scouts or others. And on a personal level, I grew up in Baltimore and went to Poly. And so we brought
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
That's close to, I grew up in East Baltimore, so that's very close.
Yeah, I grew up over at Alameda and Belvedere, the old Memorial Stadium. But we brought a group down from there because it's very much related to STEM work, you know, in terms of the physics of sailing and climate and things such as that. And almost all those kids had never been out in the water. And so we realized, particularly in Annapolis, you can be within 1,000, you can live within 1,000 feet of the water, but maybe never gotten out there. So building upon programs such as that. So while the economic gardening discussion was, you know, how we can make maybe a more profitable business, I think the virtuous circle that comes from that is that we can then reinvest in the community.
That's, yeah, absolutely. Mr. Chairman, my last thing is, you know, I realize I realize the financial strains that it may, you know, put on individuals to offer free courses, to offer, you know, economic training, etc. And that's something that I think should be included in our community grant programs, you know, that we hand out they start over every July the 1st. And so, you know, I will commit right now on this dais to submitting a amendment of at least $50,000 to go through various maritime programs to assist with that sort of training. And that's something that I will put down as an amendment for me to introduce. I think it's incredibly important, and particularly if we are making the maritime industry the backbone of our economic economy here in or I said the backbone of our economic economy. That's the backbone of our economy here in Annapolis. Like I think it's so important because economic growth is so important here, and I don't want to shut out the maritime industry because I realize obviously we're on the bay. It's crucial, but I also am trying to be a realist and realizing that potentially may fade away, in particular with climate change, etc. And so I just like to adapt to it in any way that you all are able to. And, to me, supporting that and putting money behind low-income communities that could invest in workforce opportunities there is important. So I will put in the this year's budget $50,000 to assist with this program. I've not discussed it with my colleagues, but just reading over this and hearing you all have an opportunity to share kind of your experience, I think that's incredibly important to me. And there's just a little more room to, create a level playing field in this industry. And so I want to support that.
And you had asked about entry level. I mean, we definitely have people come to the sailing school looking for a job and they don't know how to sail. We do have people coming in, who are working on the docks, working in the yard, they learn how to sail. We end up, everybody on the work for us are allowed to use our boats off time. So they'll go out with friends and learn how to sail. And the next year they come back as an instructor. So there is this growth potential that they can learn it while they're doing that. Rick, did you want to speak to salaries?
Oh, kind of, because they're high school students, it probably start at $14 an hour. So but it can certainly work up to well above $35 an hour in terms of compensation. So, but it is a challenge in the maritime industry, that cyclical nature of it. People need to do something in the winter. Diversified, obviously, they can work on boats all season. The one thing I think it could be of assistance, at least to us, is how to access the high schools here in terms of job opportunities. Because, and I think this is generally, I notice this with kids, there's something about the trades that there's something wrong. We want to go to college. We want to, work on, software programming or things such as that. But there's tremendous careers actually. I know what we pay to Diversified to fix our boats. And there's some great careers for people there, for kids there. And at least the sailing school, and I suspect this is the way with Woodwind, there's a good introduction that can go on, but it's not easy to access the public school system. And I don't want to just go to the private schools because they've got a sailing team, and then you can see if so if there's assistance, direction that we can get in that, and how to access the public schools, that would be great. Then the kidship program can expand. I think it helps when kids are learning from people that they can identify with too. And so whether that's people of color or Hispanic people, there's things that we can do in an area of recreation that's typically been focused on one group of people.
We can certainly be reaching out to our school board representative to see if maybe we can open that path up for you.
I literally was going to say that, Mr. Chairman, and
You said that was your last question.
I know. I
still got questions.
Here's the statement, and I'm so sorry because I have to run to the restroom. But I think that this is. I'm proud of you because my expectations, you shattered them with this program, and I'm extremely proud of your all's commitment to diversifying your workforce. I think that's so incredibly important. And so, like I said, I'll support the any budget amendments that we can make to help that. I'll also do the same as my colleague. Maybe we can get on a letter together from the Academic Matters Committee to reach out to Bob Mosier, the school spokesperson, to see what programming or what, they're a $2.5 billion school, to see what financing they have available to enhance those opportunities. Even if, hey, the city of Annapolis sponsors a CAT South maritime industry program for, the next 3 years. Those are the type of innovative ideas that help our economy and enhance our tax base. And so those are the things that I am eager to participate with you all in. And I will be back with more questions. I have to just use the restroom quickly. I'm sorry.
All right.
There's also, and when you come back, there's just one quick comment as putting this together. Access to the schools is great. One thing I've become very aware of, though, is transportation. Because one of our better instructors, we have a tri-sale program. He comes from Baltimore, but it turns out his uncle has to drive him here, and there's 3 other people in the household that they have to coordinate dropping him off. So we had to be flexible in terms of starting time, which is great, but it just made me aware of not all teenage kids have access to a car and can drive to the sailing school. So what's put together, if it can also include transportation for employees and not an hour on a bus to get there.
We had kids volunteer to ride bikes 6, 7 miles, and we were nervous about it. And look what's happened recently, with the accidents.
Okay, well,
Been happening.
transportation is important.
Well, we can't get unfortunately, we don't have any transportation that goes down Edgewood Road.
Yeah, public, but even,
Trying to work on that.
I don't know if there's and we could actually participate on our end too, some subsidized
Get people
Uber type of program to get people to where they need to be.
I am personally glad that you brought up transit. It's a little outside of this committee's wheelhouse, but general mobility and economic mobility are so inherently linked together. I came out of the restaurant world, and last restaurant where I was working at, one of my coworkers, he had to take a bus from Annapolis Mall all the way up to Baltimore and back down. And
Yeah, it's just, it's crushing. And then you have to work hard.
yeah. All right, folks. So I'm going to cut down to a couple specific questions if you're able to. Have any of you guys noticed any uptick in sales or businesses, et cetera, since the start of the program? I know it's a small period in, but
Well, I would say no, only in the respect that the programs we're putting in place are really kind of in the gardening sense, but we're putting the seeds in for March, April, May. So I think that they will. I think they will bear fruit. To continue with the analogy, but.
So not yet, but we are seeing very promising paths to growth being laid out. So this is a big key thing on the economic gardening program is it is about a slower but very sustainable, consistent path forward into increasing your market share. So it's not an immediate, but you do get that very nice, continuous
Right. There's
path
definitely an
forward.
implementation period that has to take place.
Excellent. So workforce development, you guys were saying, was probably one of your biggest ones with the Marine Trade Association. Ms. Sola, you worked with them. If you wouldn't mind connecting us with them as well, because I am interested in potentially getting a better partnership, especially combined with this, into some workforce development programs. Have you seen, do you other guys work with the Marine Trade Association?
We have been members and gone to meetings, but we weren't getting a lot of instructors just because we needed the young ones to come. And they were not necessarily showing up at the open houses that they had and the job fairs.
So I don't know if you've gone recently. In the last year plus, Leah, who's the executive director now, just changed hands about a year ago. But her initial focus when she came on was on workforce development and developing this apprentice program where the state, basically they fund half of the apprentice's pay for a 6-week period, 220 hours. So it's a very low risk, opportunity for businesses. You have to invest some time, but you're not paying that much for it. And basically we look at it as an extended interview, and just to make sure that person's a good fit. If it doesn't work out, okay, great, we did some good. But if it does, hallelujah, we keep them. And so she's really built up relationships with Cat South and a number of other places locally. And that was kind of the most value I saw out of MTAM when I started.
We'll look into it again.
And she works with ABYC and a number of other organizations. And I'll give you her contact information. She's excellent.
Excellent, thank you. Mr. Rice, how much longer do we have in our pilot program?
The program has concluded.
The program is completed. Now, I'm getting a lot of really positive reviews from our participants. And at the end of your slide presentation, you had a breakdown of was the pilot worthwhile? Would you say it was worthwhile, Mr. Rice?
I definitely would say that this program was worthwhile.
And that brings us to our next conclusion, or next question. Should the pilot be continued? And the three things that you presented, I think, do a pretty good summation for how we can continue this type of process. Yes, but bring it entirely under the City of Annapolis' umbrella. Yes, but continuing with the National Center for Economic Gardening. Or no, we did a fun experiment, didn't quite work, let's close it out.
Which is not bad.
No, sometimes experiments don't work, but
Exactly, the importance of the pilot.
I think this has been a pretty successful one. So I'm more interested in the two yes answers. What is your general sense?
Yeah, and just for clarity's sake, the PowerPoint presentation is from NCEG, and it's Chris Gibbons's. So those aren't actually my slides, but the question I think is a good one. Our economic development team of two, we do a lot. I think in the annual report that I shared with you maybe a day or so ago, it reflects all the things that, we are able to do. We do not have the capacity to do economic gardening in addition to all the things that we're already doing and all the other initiatives that we have. So we wouldn't be able to bring this sort of operation in-house unless we significantly expanded our economic development staff. So for practical reasons and also with respect to for reasons with regard to expertise and so forth, it doesn't make sense to move forward without including, I would say, the National Center for Economic Gardening.
Excellent. Thank you, sir. And I guess kind of next steps as we have the budget coming in, whether or not we get this in pre-amendment or do another amendment to ensure another slice of the pie. What would you like to see this done? Would you like to see this for the next year? A continuation of the pilot per se with the 6 companies we're currently working with, a potential expansion. If you don't know off the top of your head, we can always connect on that later offline or online. But I am really excited and happy seeing what I would call the first steps of success with this program. And we're not seeing this immediate snapping thing, but you tell me that anytime 6 businesses have gone forward and said the city government just gave us a clear path for growth. So Mr. Rice, do you have any thoughts or comments on maintaining the current size, potentially expanding it, or pass for now and let's noodle it over?
I think the way the program works is that once companies come in and they're given the strategic advice, for lack of a better term, they kind of move on. So I don't think it would be it would work, and there probably isn't much more value you could get from NCEG at this point. So to Alderman Gay's point, and his desire to maybe open the program up to businesses that are not just maritime, that's probably a good direction for us to go into. We specifically wanted to support the maritime industry, and we were very intentional, and that of course came out of the Maritime Task Force and some of the recommendations and the desires of the maritime community. But the other thing too with opening up the program is that it would make it easier for us to actually find stage 2 businesses, because we wouldn't be eliminating a lot of potential businesses that aren't necessarily within a particular industry. So I think that going forward is a good idea. I think we should probably keep the program small and manageable, similar in size to what we've done thus far. And maybe after that iteration, one thing that we do have to keep in mind, and this is something that we did kind of wrestle with. We don't really know the full number of stage 2 businesses that we have in the city. And the reason for that is that stage 2 businesses typically are too busy making money and growing. And so the businesses that we come across are typically businesses that have some sort of issue or some sort of problem, and they reach out to economic development for help with the city or something like that. We deal a lot with smaller businesses that are startups, but those aren't stage 2. We deal with sometimes larger businesses with more macro issues, but there's a special kind of sweet spot. So I don't think we need to go gangbusters is what I'm coming to at this point, because I don't know that we have a huge number of stage 2 businesses that could actually participate in the program. But I do think we should open it up, move forward, move not just, move beyond just maritime, and continue to invest in businesses here and help them grow.
I will call on you right after I finish my last point, Alderman Gay. I think that's a very good assessment. 6 businesses in the stage 2 for, I think we invested $25,000 in our last budget for this, is a very reasonable thing. And I think it's something to be said about taking a small bet, trying out something new and seeing that it really succeeds. So Alderman Gay, you're going to close this portion of our agenda out.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I had a couple of questions in last, just clarity in my last couple of questions. Who actually of the 6 businesses or the 4 or the 3 present right now have a nonprofit connection so that we would actually be able to send a community grant application to you and a nonprofit would be able to funnel the money to your for-profit organization? Because listen, my problem is not with for-profit organizations accepting community grant money. I have no problem with that. Some of my colleagues do. And so I believe in the funneling process where a nonprofit organization is able to, a nonprofit organization that shares the same mission and goals as a for-profit organization is able to be a funnel for financing. Do any of you have that connection? If not, how can I encourage you to be involved with Live Water, which I know has been huge in my community in particular? I know they host a sailing and kayaking course in the Eastport Terrace and Harbor House communities. Is that something you'd all be open to, or do any of you all currently have that? I see one. I'm sorry, Chair.
Good question.
So it's so funny because she just emailed me because we were talking last summer, and she just emailed me 2 days ago saying, "Hey, how can we get together?"
I did not know that, for the record. I swear to I don't want to say to God on the dais, but I swear I didn't know that.
So I do look forward to that. The other thing is that we work with the Great Chesapeake Bay Schooner Race. So where we race our schooners from Baltimore down to Norfolk, Virginia, and there is a educational component. And this year we took the money that we raised during a fundraising program through there. They used the money and they asked where it should go. And I worked with Archie Trader and Alderman Rhonda Pindell.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. Ward 3.
Yes, because she's in where I live. And we got to take out 30 kids there. And then one of Archie's groups, they took out 30 kids as well on the boat. And so we did a lot of outreach that way.
Yeah, that'd be great if you all could provide maybe Stephen with your contact information and then contact information of the organization you work with, so we could all follow up on a single thread and just say, hey, here's our community grant. Work with your for-profit and nonprofit to kind of fill out a application in collaboration and see what we could do. And that's also, again, due by February the 23rd. So that should be a pretty quick turnaround. I'm sorry, but yeah.
So just the one thing I would say, we right now don't have a not-for-profit arm. We do a lot of philanthropic things, but we kind of haven't, if you will, optimized it because it probably would make more sense. We have looked at that there are some organizations that we work with. One, for example, is called Peak Social, that has a
You said Peace Social?
Peak Social.
Okay, Peak, okay. Thank you.
They have things like dodgeball leagues and axe throwing leagues and all these things, but they also have a philanthropic or a not-for-profit piece. So there may be ways that we could work with another organization that we're already engaged with on a for-profit basis, and then longer term look at the nonprofit status.
Yeah, we also have a couple other charities, like Brendan's Ale. We let them use one of our beaches for several weeks during the summer for sailing lessons for children with disabilities. That's something that's been going on for probably 30 years.
So we're philanthropically minded. We just haven't set ourselves up to receive money.
And Mr. Chairman, if I could, just one last question?
Yep, one more.
My question is in regards to maritime expansion and I know in the Maritime Task Force, when we did that, there was, some pushback against it, but I just can't get past the idea that maritime industries would pass up on, say you have 15,000 square feet, and this is obviously theoretical, no place is that small, but just to be able to use, 2,500 or 3,500 of that for some sort of either commercial, residential. I mean, I can't get past that. I understand that it could present issues as it relates to the current city code and the language it requires for maritime industries or for trigger requirements in maritime industries. But I have visited a number of places that are, maritime focused and have created alternatives to support their tax base, and particularly in Connecticut, where the Choice Neighborhood Grant, which is a HUD-funneled program, has created housing developments in their maritime industry. And it's affordable housing, similar to the CNI program that we have here in the city of Annapolis right now, where they're making so much money off of both housing and commercial uses. It's in a maritime district, very similar to us. In fact, when I seen the first photo, I thought, is this Annapolis? I literally looked at it and was like, is this our city? So I'm wondering what your all thoughts are there. I know in the Maritime Task Force, there was push away from, integrating those type of uses. But I'm looking at the economic perspective in the city of Annapolis and saying, hey, look, we can't continue to tax our property owners too much more because everyone's pissed off, obviously, that the evaluation from the county is up 3% every year. And so obviously that makes our property taxes go up every year. We can't rely on the sales tax, which some municipalities like Ocean City can from, tourism dollars, etc. So where can we make money? And it has to be through businesses and through the economic opportunity that we have in the city. And so expanding that for you all to commercial and residential growth while maintaining your existing zoning as a maritime property, I'm wondering what your thoughts are on that. And for your bottom line and for our bottom line, how would that affect you all?
Well, I guess, I know there's a whole other discussion around density that goes beyond the maritime properties. And because our property being on the south side of Back Creek, there obviously is a tremendous effort to kind of keep it maritime. I think both because of what it supports work-wise, tourism-wise, and looking nice and not having high density. But that's kind of beyond my pay grade, if you will, in terms of opinions on that. Where I think we can help the most is two ways. One, the more people from outside of Annapolis that we can bring in that have a very low impact. Most of our sailboats don't even have motors. And so that they can come in and they can spend money and support Annapolis is probably the best thing that we can do for it. The other thing, which might be a possibility, there's no boat building that goes on in Annapolis. And I have this idea that at some time, maybe we can a day sailor, we have our mainstay of our fleet's the Rainbow 24-foot boat, a simple boat. But could Annapolis ever actually start building boats again? And in that respect, then our property is a great place because it's marine, industrial, and building boats and right next to the water. So the near term, the best thing we can do is help bring people in to spend money. And if you can figure out how to extract that money from the state in Anne Arundel County, then that would be great. And then the second thing is longer term, could we actually do something in the maritime industry that's gone away from Annapolis so far?
So much, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that, and I look forward to, again, working with you all on the nonprofit issues and, transferring some of that community grant funding to you all, and just additional economic growth. This was great. Thank you so much.
All right, Alderman Savage, and
Oh, I
then we're
think
going
there was
to
a question.
close out.
May I just ask one question that is I've been dying to ask? And I just, even though I've been in business for 30 years doing the woodwinds, so the admission and amusement tax that we have to pay, that goes to Anne Arundel County and Annapolis, correct? So that extra, it's county,
I think so.
just county, not Annapolis?
Well, we can appropriate it because I know we did such with the rental assistance fund where we appropriated 3% of the entertainment tax.
We get a slice of it.
Yeah, we get a very, very, he is absolutely correct. The majority of it goes to the counties. We get a very small sliver of that, yes.
Okay, I was just curious because we make you guys a lot of money in that admission and amusement tax. As far as our business goes, that's a 10% tax that goes straight to admissions and amusement. So.
Yeah, and admittedly.
Are you familiar with any reports on that?
We weren't always obvious to our customers when they were paying that extra amount. And we're starting to learn we need to be more obvious that they're paying that. And the reason why we have to price things where they are is to allow for it, so.
Because nonprofits don't have to.
Yeah.
That's right.
All right, Alderman Savage.
Actually, if I may, I just want to make one quick point. There actually is boat building in Annapolis. Chesapeake Lightcraft builds beautiful boats.
Thank you for the correction.
Lightcraft.
Chesapeake Lightcraft, they build beautiful boats.
I just wanted to thank you all for coming. This has helped improve my understanding of the program, and I think it's going to be important. Next step is really figuring out how to get this to the rest of the council when this comes up for discussion at the budget.
And one thing I would say, because this is focused on kind of stage 2 companies in terms of growth, it does take some infrastructure and people that can dedicate time and some sophistication. There may be a whole other effort you want to do in terms of startup businesses and the challenges that they have. So this was pretty rigorous. And the economic gardening people knew their stuff. And I'd also compliment them. They were not looking for follow-on business. And they were generous in saying, if you have some questions, even though you've used up your hours, you can give us a call. So, but for the next group that comes in, they have to be ready to kind of work hard to take advantage of what they can provide.
Yeah, and it might be a good, and you might already be thinking about this, Mr. Chair, but a nice next step might be to identify some of the other stage 2 companies in the city. That might be a good opportunity to reach out to about this program. I know we have, 5 months or so until the budget deliberations?
Absolutely. Just a little background on the initial pilot outreach. The Center for Economic Gardening actually helped us find a series of stage 2 companies, not just in the city of Annapolis, but also in the county as well. So we were kind of using that as a basis for the initial outreach. I think getting an update with them would be a good start. And I know when we initially started the pilot program, I didn't want to put extra strings on it, but something I would like to see in the future is like maybe we prioritize minority-owned businesses for another go-around, or at least ensure that we incorporate a couple of them in there. And this has so much exciting potential.
Yeah.
Like, this is probably the most excited I've been about government action in a long time. So Folks, thank you so much for coming. You're more than welcome to stick around for the rest of the meeting. If you do, I would like to just chat a little bit about some of the stuff. But if you have to go, I understand. It's a Tuesday night. It's rainy. It's late. And you want to go home. Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, up next on the agenda, 05122, floodplain management according to the Floodplain Management Code. This is introduced by Mayor Buckley and Alderwoman Tierney, neither who are here, but it is a pretty straightforward piece of legislation. It basically updates our code to be more in compliance with FEMA standards. And if we accept it, property owners in the flood zone can get a 5% discount on their flood insurance. Basically, it just gets our floodplain management code in compliance with FEMA, so homeowners can pay less for their insurance. Any discussion on?
I do have a discussion on that, actually. I'm sorry, but I'll defer to Alderman Savage first.
Well, I mean, we have Mr. Chief Manasseh here. I don't know if you wanted to give I think this is why he's here. So, you might be able to enlighten us as far as.
In case you had any questions.
Okay.
I mean, the staff report's pretty self-explanatory, but if you... The staff report, I think, is pretty self-explanatory while you try to pull it up. Do you want to give any background on the legislation, some of its potential impacts, or...
Certainly. John Manasseh, Chief of Code Enforcement, Department of Planning and Zoning. Yeah, the code amendment is presented to you. If you're aware, the city has embarked on the community rating system, which is an opportunity for FEMA to come in and evaluate our compliance with floodplain code. And in that process, it's fairly rigorous. They study what we're doing. They evaluate everything that we're doing and come up with a score in the end. And that score relates to how much of a discount, residents and business owners can receive on their flood insurance premium. And in the preliminary meeting, when we are embarking on this program, we learned that there's one provision in our floodplain code which will limit that reduction to 5%. And that's the section of code that we're striking with this amendment. What it's doing in practical terms is the model floodplain code that we adopted allows for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing systems to be built below the flood protection elevation. So let's say, for example, you have a house that you're building and it's a new home. And the elevation of the first floor has to be, let's say, 6 feet off the ground. Traditionally, you could build the ductwork for your HVAC system under the floor, and it would potentially be in the flood area that would get flooded if that house was inundated with the 100-year flood. What this amendment does is takes that out of the code and says, okay, you can't build it under the floor anymore. You'd have to build it in the walls, and maybe the air handler would be in the attic or in a closet somewhere. So that's really the change that this code is seeking, is saying, take it out of the area that could be flooded. And FEMA has decided that the floodplain code that we adopted in 2015 is sort of becoming antiquated. And what we're looking at is probably in the near future, MDE will recommend taking that out of the floodplain code statewide. But because we're in this program and being evaluated, they want us to do it ahead of time, or else we're going to be limited to that 5% reduction. We were hoping to get more, closer to 15, maybe even better. So in terms of how this will affect the community, we probably only receive maybe 1 or 2 building permits that will be impacted by this per year. Okay, because it only affects new houses in the floodplain or new commercial construction in the floodplain, or a major renovation that's worth more than 50% of the total property in the floodplain. So if you have an existing house that you're going to rebuild in the floodplain, this could apply, but it doesn't apply to any property outside the floodplain. So that's like 99% of all of our properties, you know. So it doesn't apply to them, and it doesn't apply to somebody that's just got an existing house and they want to rehab their, you know, their HVAC system. They're putting in a new air handler, they're replacing it, they're updating. If that's all they're doing, this code wouldn't impact them because they're not redeveloping their whole house or their whole commercial property. So that's what I'm saying. It only is going to affect maybe 1 or 2 people in a given calendar year. And really what it's doing is it's making it less likely that their property will be damaged or their mechanical, electrical, and plumbing system will be damaged if they are flooded, because it's just elevating that material up.
Makes sense to me. Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Chief Manasseh. I think you probably know better than I on this, but at least anecdotally, when I drive around the county, it seems that they may already require this, because at least I've seen quite a bit of new construction where the units are already lifted. Do you know if that's the case in the county, or?
Well, typically the condenser unit, which is the part you see outside, that has to be elevated, you know, regardless of this code change.
Okay.
So this code change is simply for the ductwork, which you usually don't see. It's all like under the floor.
Yeah.
And that's really the difference is we say that, okay, if the flood elevation could get up to 5 feet high, you know, the city code says, let's be safe, let's build it 2 feet above that. So the top of your finished floor will be at 7 feet. Well, that leaves some area underneath the floor where they try to shove, you know, things like the ductwork. And it was sort of the accepted practice, but what they're saying now is it's better to remove that from that little crawl space below the floor, and basically the void of your floor joist, get it up above there where it's not going to be subject to flooding. It's better for the long-term life of the building. So there's sort of a win-win, but there are a lot of other jurisdictions that are already in this program, and they're also to be continuing with that reduction in their flood insurance premium. You know, Baltimore City, some other counties that are already in that program, they're already going through that same change where they have to do the same thing we're doing and take out that provision that allows the systems to be located under the floors. They're doing that the same way. They've got to take that out of their code, or else their problem might be that their insurance rates will actually go up. So, you know, the obvious answer is to take it out of the code, especially if that's the way it's trending in the future.
Mm-hmm. And so this is basically a recommendation from FEMA?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Alderman Gay?
Just one quick question. I would hope that if this is passed, eligible applicants would still be able to apply for home repair programs that the Department of Housing and Community Development offer?
Absolutely. This doesn't impact any real other program. This is just a requirement to say that the project is going to comply with the code. All we're doing with this legislation to take this out of the code is saying you just can't build it a certain way. You can't build it below the flood protection elevation. You got to build your systems above the flood protection elevation. But any assistance would still be available to any of those programs.
Perfect. This is great. I have a bias as I work with a delegate who is sponsoring legislation right now for additional home repair access for Maryland residents. But I think this is incredibly important, and I hope that you know, the additional dollars come to us, come to our municipality. Thank you.
Yeah, and Alderman Gay, the standards that this would comply with aren't going to be a significant cost to construction, adding to overall costs of things like housing or business renovation. It's pretty easy and effective to just simply going, instead of putting your systems in the basement where it gets flooded, you put them in your attic.
Okay, perfect. Sounds very smart to me.
Makes sense. If you are in a floodplain, put your delicate things high up. So I would like to be added as a co-sponsor to this, please, Ms. Jackson.
And if you could add me as a co-sponsor as well.
And do I have a motion for a favorable recommendation?
So move.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes unanimously. Up next, 05522.
Oh, yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
I would like to make a motion to postpone until our next meeting.
Do I have a second?
Second, and I'm very curious in this, so I would be likely supporting it.
All right.
And I just explained, I'm still working on a couple of amendments that are addressing staff concerns, and we're also still waiting on some information regarding the fee amount. So I think we'll have all that together for the next meeting, hopefully.
Sounds good. Right. So we will be postponing that until next meeting. Oh, we got to vote that? All right. So I have a first and a second. All in favor of postponing 05522 to our next meeting?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, passes unanimously. Final thing for the good of the order, I appreciate you guys working with me on rescheduling this time to try and accommodate as many of the business owners for economic gardening as possible. I am so sorry, Alderman Gay. Thank you for
No.
reminding me.
You're totally fine.
Per
2
our
seconds.
adjusted amendment, we have on 215 the Black Business event. So Alderman Gay.
Absolutely, and it could be potentially changed, but I just wanted to highlight for the residents right now, we're working with the mayor's office, and hopefully we'll get a supplemental appropriation from the council to support this. But what we're essentially trying to do, and particularly during the year of the COVID-19 pandemic, so many businesses were created, and some of them registered legally, some of them registered illegally. But we want to not prohibit economic growth, but to enhance that. And so just during the month of Black History Month, we want to take the opportunity to provide minority businesses, minority meaning Black, Hispanic, Latino, women, etc., the opportunity to just enhance their education and knowledge on programs and how to run businesses. And so that's something that I would like to put forward through this committee if possible.
Yeah, absolutely. When, Ms. Jackson, when is our next normally scheduled meeting in February?
For
Economic matters, yes.
And if I could, I would put that request through a supplemental appropriation in our next Economic Matters Committee meeting.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And if we can squeeze it in time, I'd love to have the people coming in from the event to come before us.
That's fantastic. And I don't anticipate that it being over $1,000 at all.
Oh, so the event is the same day as the next hearing.
Yeah.
Well, that seems like a good reason to piggyback him. Invite him and we'll put it on the agenda.
Okay, awesome. And I've already been in touch with the mayor's staff about requesting a supplemental appropriation to come before the council. And so I'll be sponsoring that to support events in Black History Month. And so
How much money?
I think for this event, it'll cost about $500. For another event we're doing this Friday, it'll cost about $1,200. I don't anticipate the events in their entirety going over $5,000.
Yeah, and me as a co-sponsor to whatever you do on that front, I think that's a worthwhile investment. It's pretty small, so like,
Yeah.
be pretty irresponsible of us to not try it out. All right, any other things for the good of the order? Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Do I have a second? To adjourn?
Yeah.
All right, all in favor? Aye.